Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we are bringing you our guest who is the head coach and owner of Adept MMA in Geelong. He's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He fights MMA. You might have seen him on Fusion a couple of times. And we are really looking forward to getting to know Jason Petropoulos. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'm very excited for this.
The Fusion champ, right, Jason?
Thank you.
You were the champ.
I'll jump straight. You go first, Brentos.
You were the Fusion champ, Jason. Is that right?
I was the Fusion fighting champion up until the last fight. Unfortunately, I lost my title by split decision. But yes, I was the under 75 kilo Fusion combat jiu-jitsu champion. So that was really exciting. I quite enjoy combat jiu-jitsu. I like adding ground and pound in with your jiu-jitsu. I think it keeps the style sort of pure and like what it was for fighting. I really enjoy that sort of aspect added to it. So I think Fusion is one of the best promotions for that.
I've got about 3 questions straight off the top, Kim. So I hope that's okay with you. And my first one, Jason, is where did the will to fight come from for you? I know that some people just have this inbred will. Is that something you've always had, or like where did it come from for you?
Sorry, you were chopping out a little bit.
Okay, so
then what was the question? Where did the drive for fighting come from for me?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, where did this will to fight come from for you?
I kind of had a pretty bad childhood. Sort of growing up, I always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Sort of as I was growing up, I had to grow up fairly fast. I started sort of taking care of my mother when I was 14 years old. I grew up in a pretty abusive household. So then I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I always wanted to be a star, and I like talking on microphones. So I wanted to be a pro wrestler then. And then I looked into pro wrestling, and it was just yuck. And it's so yuck. Like, first of all, you're in Speedos half the time. There's never a time in the world a man should be in Speedos, like ever at all. And then you're putting your head in between sweaty, oily Speedo man's thighs willingly. And I was like, I could only get around that if we're in shorts. So I was like, I was at sort of a crossroads. I was 16 years old, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I looked into pro wrestling. I was like, that kind of sucks. There was no wrestling schools to do that. So then I end up going to a place that taught, well, it said MMA, but it was a jiu-jitsu place. And I was like, oh, this could be fun. Do that. Maybe that'll help with the whole pro wrestling journey. Well, I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I just fell in love with it. I started competing fairly early on. I think it was a 2nd stripe white belt, and then 3rd stripe white belt onwards. I started competing, and then I kept winning. So I was like, this is cool. And as a kid at the time who felt like he needed to prove himself, I just wanted to keep going. And that really brought my love for it.
Where did you first start training?
Fantastic. So was it always straight jiu-jitsu, or then when did you start to transition into MMA as well?
So I started fighting amateur and pro MMA with no real striking whatsoever, which I don't recommend to any single person, by the way. Like, if you're going to fight MMA, know how to actually fight everything. Don't just be one-dimensional. But somehow I had success with that. I'm really not sure how. I had 3 amateur fights, and in all 3 of those fights, I won by submission in 1 minute. The longest one went for 1 minute, but some was shorter. 2 of them I pulled guard, throw up an armbar, won. These days, you can't get away with that. The caliber of fighter is much higher in the amateur level than it was when I was fighting amateur. And then I went pro after that, and I won my first 2 pro fights by submission. The only fight that went to the 3rd round, I won that by submission, and then the other one I won in 51 seconds of the first round with guillotine. And then I was like, oh, well, this is all going well. Then I fought, and I lost to a guy by split decision. And the only reason I lost, I had no idea what to do on the feet. I was confused. I was like, what is this? What do we do? Where do I hold this? At the place I was at, you weren't allowed to spar on the feet. You were only allowed to roll, and only on the knees. So I had no wrestling either. So like, a prerequisite, I feel, for jiu-jitsu is you should know how to take someone down. Like, of course, have a good guard, have all these things. We should know how to take someone down. I had no idea. Hoping for the best. I won any fights back then. And then, so I left that place and I went to a place called Elite Training Center. And I started training with Rich Poole, who's my coach. So he owns the gym with me. So there's 3 owners of Adept, myself, Ryan Mills, and Richard Poole. So Rich Poole is sort of like the main head coach who looks after everyone. I look after all the grappling at Elite and at Adept, and then at Elite I became the jiu-jitsu coach, which was really exciting. And then Rich taught me how to wrestle, taught me how to strike, and now I'm a fairly decent fighter according to people.
You've definitely created some.
So that just started the whole journey, and then I fell in love with it. I love it, and now the fact that I can make money off jiu-jitsu as well as MMA as well as all these things is just awesome to me. So it's really exciting. I love jiu-jitsu more than anything because it's one of those things I always felt you can do it with your mates. There's no like sort of harm in it. Whereas I always felt like if you're striking stuff, you can't really strike with like people who don't know what they're doing without being safe. Whereas jiu-jitsu, they can go as hard as they want. You're just like, la, 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 strangle them, happy days.
You've definitely created some highlights, Jason. Having a look through your Instagram, there's 2 things that really stuck out to me, right? Number 1, you have massive biceps.
Thank you.
for under
only if some of
75 or
our
whatever.
viewers will be seeing that. I think many people listen. So anyone who's listening he's just done a double bicep flex. But sorry, go on.
They're worth checking out on the Instagram. But the other thing is, your flying arm bars are legit. How many of those have you hit?
I like to try and make highlights. So I love flying submissions. I like being dynamic. I've always been a bit of an athletic kid, so I like doing anything dynamic. I like the crowd. I love the roar of the crowd. That's the main reason I fight. Like, it sounds kind of ridiculous when I say these things. Like, people ask me, why do you fight? When I give them an honest answer, I mean, the sort of answer you would give people that makes you not sound like you're a psychopath would be like, I just love sport, love the competition, all that. I just really like beating people up in front of my friends.
Yeah.
I just think that's really fun. So I like the crowd cheering. So what gets me going is the crowd screaming, yelling, leaping to their feet. I love that.
Yeah.
So I love big crowds. I love the spotlight. I love that kind of thing. So I like dynamic moves. I like flying arm bars. I've got flying leg scissor heel hooks on people. I've a flying triangle. One stage I did that to someone. I YouTubed it 10 minutes before I fought. That's a real story. Same as flying leg scissor heel hook. I watched it on the drive up and I said to my coach, Rich, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this today. And he goes, well, you should do something, practical. And I was like, I think I'll be fine. And then I pulled it off.
Once I heard an expression and I still believe in it, and what you've just described really hits home to me, that the way you fight or the way you roll is like a reflection of your personality. Would you say that's the case for you, Jason? Like,
for
you
sure.
seem quite flamboyant and outgoing.
Yeah. Well, apparently my missus tells me I have ADHD and she's, a psychologist. So I feel like she's probably smart. So a lot smarter than me. And so I don't know. I love, like, I'm a very high energy guy and I love that. So that's how I like to, it is true though, because that's how I like to roll. I'm very explosive. I do like cartwheel passes and a lot of standing things, generally top game now these days. But I used to be known as a guard guy, but nowadays everyone just calls me a wrestler for some reason. I play a lot of top game and that's because I just don't like getting hit in the face. It hurts.
Yeah, that's why I chose jiu-jitsu as a martial art instead of anything else, because I think punching really hurts and kicking really hurts. So I'm like, hey, what else can I do? I'm like, jiu-jitsu sounds good. So with all of this,
I've seen some of your stuff, Brad. Actually, you're quite good.
Oh, thank you, man.
I enjoyed watching that. I don't normally enjoy watching the gi, but I enjoyed you doing it.
Gi is king. Gi is king, Jason. Come on, mate. Come back to the dark side.
Oh, I can't. I've tried. I can't. I used to compete in the gi a lot until I think I was a brown belt. I competed in the gi.
Yeah.
But like, for me personally, I just can't. Like, one, everyone grabbing my clothes is annoying me, and then 2, it's just like, because I don't spend a lot of time in it. If someone chokes me with like my own pajamas, I'll be very upset.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the thing, right?
Does Adept have any gi classes? Is it just a no gi school?
None. Fewer no gi.
Interesting.
So, because I focus so much on MMA, I just personally find that the gi doesn't translate to MMA very well.
Yeah.
Like, gi and no gi, kind of similar. Like, you can have, like, your no gi game will work in the gi, like, completely fine.
Yeah.
But if you transition from gi to MMA, I find there's quite a gap where people will get used to the handles, they'll get used to the sleeve grips, the lapel, the pants, the belt, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are phenomenal grips and they'll aid you perfectly. However, in MMA, you don't have those. So then when you build a game that's reliant on those types of things, I just find it doesn't translate well. And I've personally noticed this. I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, Brent, you compete in the gi quite a lot. You'd be more of an expert on this. I find like people don't wrestle as much in the gi. So like there's a less of an emphasis on it, whereas in no gi, there's much more of an emphasis on it because obviously sweat, it's easier to pass than in the gi because obviously you can have more control in the guard. You have different handles. Sweat gets soaked up. Sweat isn't as much of a factor where you can slip out of things as much. There's a lot more control. So, which MMA is quite erratic. Like you see the way people will turtle, they'll give their back, which is actually incorrect in jiu-jitsu, but correct for MMA because you can use the cage, throw your back to it, and now use that to stand back up to your feet. So I just found with that, because my gym is an MMA gym, although I teach all the jiu-jitsu and that's where we go, I actually call my class submission grappling solely because it starts on the feet. I do have a heavy emphasis on wrestling as well, and it can be a bit rough in a respect because it's more no-gi and a bit MMA orientated. Like it's a bit more explosive. Like a lot of my guys, if you look at them, they're quite heavily muscled because I encourage people to lift weights and whatnot and an athletic sort of thing. But I have people who aren't as well, but still.
Yeah. As a 51-year-old, mate, I don't think there's too much wrestling going on, whether it's gi or no gi for me, to be honest with you.
No, it is true. That is true.
Have you, so with your love for pro wrestling, did you ever have a crack at anything over here in regards to doing a wrestling show or anything like that? Like I know you're mates with Chris Trio. I know that he's a bit of a wrestling fan as well, right? And I know that he's been in wrestling shows. Did you ever go down that path at all? Yeah, I was, yeah. And just if you've ever done any
I'm not
wrestling.
sure about your connection, Brentos. It's a little bit sketchy for me as well.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like a little bit of cutting out where I'm missing a little bit parts of the sentence.
Sorry, me too. Apologies to our listeners. We've changed to a different platform. We're still
hopefully this will be better.
Oh, here we go. You look a lot better all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you look good. You look good always. You always look good. But the sound and the quality of the picture is better.
So when you turn Wi-Fi off and you use data, I think that's the key for me, right?
Okay.
Which is what I was meant to do. There we go.
I'm hearing you perfect now too. This is amazing. This is wonderful.
Sorry, just repeat that question, Brent.
Yeah, so what I was sort of saying actually, Jason, was with your love for professional wrestling and that sort of thing, and I said I know that you and Chris Trio are good mates and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Did you ever go down that path of professional wrestling? Did you ever get in a show or anything along those? Like you like highlights, you like the crowd, you don't love like just parading around in your undies, but did you ever go down that path?
Look, I've thought about it so much. Like, I really have. So I had another friend, Daniel Gibbons, his ring name was Danny Psycho. He did things for PCW. He told me if I went into pro wrestling, I'd have the belt in 6 months. He goes, because of like more microphone skills and whatnot. And I was like, I thought about it and I've battled with it. I did some pro wrestling training with him, but your body gets battered with that. Yeah. Like battered. Like, think about a hard roll, yeah? That's like 20% of the damage you'll take doing some of those stunts. Because at the end of the day, it is stunts. Yeah. You're launching yourself. Like when they do a hip toss, well, what they call a hip toss, not like a real life hip toss. When they do it, you're basically running and doing a front flip. And you'll do that 20 times. Yeah. Or when they do a move called the electric chair. So you sit on their shoulders and they jump with you back and you have to like slam back. All these high like amplitude slams, they just take a toll on your body. And because I still like to actively compete with different things, I was like, I looked at the risks versus reward. I would, if I went into a pro wrestling scenario, do like maybe 1 or 2 matches, but I'd be like a manager. I'd talk to like people on the mic and stuff and do like a Paul Heyman kind of thing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen my interviews. I try and keep them like fairly entertained because I enjoy it. It's like,
Yeah.
I enjoy like talking to the crowd. I enjoy talking with the things. It's my favorite part. Like if I was good at other things, I would definitely get into something where I can talk on the microphone more. But I kind of suck at stuff, so I'm just good at bashing people. So I'm just stick to beating people up to talk on a mic in front of a crowd outside of commentating.
Well, you've certainly beaten up a few people in Fusion. Can you tell us about, as you said earlier, like unfortunately you lost the most recent one, but then you were successful the one prior.
Yes.
And I mean, that's certainly a show that's grown heaps over the past, year or so. What can you tell us a bit more about it, especially from like behind the scenes?
So fun. So Matteo, I have a lot of nice words to say about him. I quite like him as a promoter. So there's a couple of promoters that I quite like. There's always like this thing, right? And it's a real thing. There was an old saying. It goes, in the world, if there was a nuclear bomb, the only things that would survive are cockroaches and fight promoters, right? So, but when people are actually legitimately good, because at the end of the day, most fight promoters are out for their bottom line. Like they don't so much care about the athletes, which is, I guess, to be expected in some ways, but like they don't care as long as you're making money. Like you could be like just a shit person, but they'll be like, oh, you make me money, so they'll promote you, right? But then you get some people that are genuine. They genuinely care and everything. And those two people that I've noticed the most genuine that I've ever met in my life throughout fighting, it would be Wayne Carl and Matteo. And Matteo runs Fusion. I think he runs an absolute amazing show. Great dude. Like with my last fight, it was like all thrown up in the air. I was meant to fight Rodolfo in a rematch, Rodolfo Marquez, who I beat and I won the title. We were meant to have a rematch because there was like 3 people that thought it was close. And due to that, I guess, I like to silence everyone, whether it be 3 people, 1 person, maybe it was just his wife. Who knows? So when they did that, I planned on beating him again to retain my belt. But then I had like a bunch of opponent shifts. I ended up fighting Nikos Trepka. Lost by split decision. Better man won. He was able to hold me down. That sucked. And not something I'm used to. And I mean, it was a loving embrace, but I was like, come on, bro, let's fight.
Yeah.
Like, you're holding me. This sucks. And, I'm losing. This isn't fun.
Yeah.
But it was really well run. So the whole show, well ran. I like the rules. The referees are good. I like everything from start to finish. I like the weigh-ins. I like how much he cares about the fighters.
Yeah.
And it's just a well-run show. You go there, you have your own little change rooms. I personally, I don't know how many people feel about this. I don't know how, actually, I'll ask you real quick, Brett. Do you get nervous before you compete?
Him and I had this conversation a little while ago, right? And there is definitely some level of nerves, but for me, it's not a high level. I've got like a little routine that I've developed, which I go through the night before. And then once I've gone through that, like I'm good to go. If I haven't competed for a while, then I definitely feel a few more nerves. And part of me is like, what the fuck am I doing this for, But if I've had a couple of competitions and I feel okay about where I'm at, then the level of nerves isn't too bad. Like Kim and I have sort of spoken about this. My routine the night before is I go through the match in my head. I visualize it going perfectly. I visualize it going wrong, and then how I get it back. And then I visualize it going well again, and then like I'm done. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, it works out pretty well. And I'm also not worried about getting kicked and punched in the face, right? So, I think that's beneficial.
See, I like, even if it's grappling, right? Grappling a little bit less so, but even on like fusion and stuff, it's funny. So for me, this is why I want to ask you sort of how you feel. See, I'm weird, right? So I won't be nervous at all. I'm actually like really excited leading up to everything. Then it gets a day before, I get really nervous. Then on weigh-ins, I feel amazing because I love staring at my opponent in the eyes. And then on fight night, out the back, I am fucking terrified. I'm like, why do I do this shit? I'm like, what is happening? I could do anything else in my life. Instead, I'm about to fight another half-naked man in a cage.
Yeah.
What is this madness?
Yeah.
Why am I choosing to do this? And then about 10 minutes before. So the reason I say this is because I like it when they put me in the locker room. So Mateo is very good with it. I like to be close to a toilet because I piss so much. This might be a bit graphic for everyone listening. I piss so much I could cure like a drought. Like I don't even consume that much water to be doing that, but I'm like a nervous peer. So I like do that. So he always looks after me like that. But then afterwards, after that, all those nerves go. It's like it starts here and then it just goes. And then I'm just really, really excited to get out there. And the louder the crowd roars, the happier I am. And then I'm ready to go. They like give me energy. Everyone like screams, like, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Get a guy up in front of you all so you cheer louder.
That the walkout must be something special. You haven't done a super fight yet, Kim, have you?
No.
Like, number one,
they're so fun.
I would love to figure out what my walkout song would be. I think that's like the hardest thing in the world to come up with, right? But aside from that, I think that walkout would be pretty cool.
Best
feel it, especially with friends and teammates and that sort of thing. I mean, I've been to quite a few of the Fusion events now, and I agree they are really, really well run. And for the most part, the crowd kind of gets behind their teammates and then also everybody else. So as an athlete competing, I think it's pretty cool.
Jiu-Jitsu is a lot more civil than MMA. MMA is like people will. It's weird, right? It's weird. So like you'll walk out. So I'll walk out on MMA shows. I'll walk out on now grappling shows because generally when I compete in grappling now, it's generally what would be more deemed as a super fight. I don't really do tournaments as much.
Yeah.
Now I sort of like to do super fights and whatnot just because I'm lazy and I just want to fight one guy. Like I walk around way too heavily muscled to have good cardio. Like it's just one of those things. It's not even for like athletic purposes. I just like how my missus looks at me when I take my top off. See, there isn't a muscular.
Makes sense.
But when you walk out, like jiu-jitsu is so civil. Everyone wants to cheer for everyone. Everyone wants everyone to do sort of well. Whereas in MMA, you'll have people like, God forbid you don't win a fight, people will talk about like you're the shittest person that's ever lived. You'll win a fight and they'll say that you're the greatest thing that's happened since sliced bread. Like, whereas in jiu-jitsu, everyone's respectful regardless. If you win or you lose, everyone's like, well done, you're a warrior. Like, they'll clap for you. In MMA, you miss a jab and everyone's like, that guy's washed. He's got to go. You're like, it's what?
Yeah.
So I like it. The crowd cheering is the same, but there's no like booing if you're not doing well. People respect the athletes, people respect the warriors, and I quite love that. And my walkout song actually is a custom song.
Okay.
It was made by a Geelong rapper, so I live in Geelong, for those of you who don't know. Geelong guy. My gym's in Breakwater on Tanner Street. There was a local guy, his name is Juice. He goes by Juice Box. And I approached him and I was like, hey, I really want a custom song because, I don't know, I think it'd be cool to hear my name in a song. And anyway, he did. So it's called The Argonaut, the song that comes out because I'm Jason the Argonaut Petropoulos. And it just sings about me, sings about my gym. It's really cool. So it gets me like real pumped.
Yeah.
It like goes off and I'm like, yes, I can't wait.
That's cool.
Our theme song is also custom.
I
did
notice that.
Thank you.
I was like, either you searched high and low for something that sings roll or die, or I got lucky, or that is custom.
No, that's the jiu-jitsu community.
We go very deep in the show, right? We put the time in. We put the money into production. This is important.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like it, actually, because it's like, I like intense things, and it's like really intense. I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, we've had a bit of feedback, actually. Some people think a little bit too intense. We're considering mellowing it down, but...
No, don't listen to them. They're pussies. Don't listen to them.
This is coming from Jason, like the most punk person we've had on.
Yeah. It's going to say, I feel like I bring like energy very, very high. It's how I am in just everyday life.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know how my missus puts up with me, to be honest. Like, she's the true warrior.
And what's next for you, Jason? What's the future?
So I've got an MMA fight in October 19th for a Grow Strong. I'm fighting in Warwick in Queensland. If you don't know where that is, for anyone who doesn't know where that is, you're not missing anything. It is like literally in bumfuck nowhere, and there are bugs the size of dinosaurs. Last time my mates and I went there, a friend of mine, he stepped on a beetle that was the size of a pterodactyl.
Wow.
And he steps on it. This is like an 87 kilo man, steps on it and just pulls off its wing. The thing just walks off like nothing happened. I saw my first ever bird-eating spider.
Yeah.
It was enormous, and it was eating a bird. That's how I knew it was a
Yeah.
bird-eating spider as well. Like, it was eating the bird, and I was like, I put two and two together. And it's place is fucking crazy. So, anyway, going there, I actually have a story for there. There was a grasshopper, right? I didn't even know. It knocked on the door and then jumped us. And this is as real as how I'm saying it. So what happened was, we were in the room. So a mate of mine, so the guy I'm fighting, my teammate and co-owner, Ryan Mills, fought and bashed him in 50 seconds. So I have to try and do it fast. And now we have a bet going on. Hopefully I can, fingers crossed, see what happens. The guy's pretty good. And we're in the room and there's like a knock. We hear like that. And I was like, so like I look out the window, no one's there. And I was like, oh, ghosts, whatever. Sit down. And then we hear again. And I was like, so I open the door and this grasshopper jumps up, headbutts me in the eye. Like this thing, I was like, you have to cut weight to like fight me at featherweight or something. This thing's massive. And then we're like trying to like battle this thing. So that was, that's in Warwick. The thing was like that. It was huge. Didn't even know they came that big.
Yeah. Everything's big up there, mate.
Yeah.
Dude, telling you. I'm not used to it. I'm 5'7". I'm tiny. So, those of you who don't know, because that's the imperial system that Americans use, which is terrible. I'm 172 centimeters.
So when's this fight coming up, Jason?
October 19th. So, I'm fighting him at middleweight. Yeah. So, I prefer to fight at featherweight. I fought as low as flyweight. I did that once. I'm not really sure how I did that, but I did it once. It's 57 kilos, and that was awful. I don't recommend that. I almost died making weight. Don't recommend that. I won that fight in 1 minute. Go figure, because, I was like 72 kilos on fight night.
Yeah.
But, weight cutting is just legal cheating. It's ridiculous. But I normally like to fight at featherweight, but I'm setting a world record. I want to be the only fighter in the history of the world to have a win in 6 different weight classes. Wow. So I've won at flyweight, I've won at bantamweight, I've won at featherweight. So I'm going all the way up to middleweight first because, I can just lift a bunch of weights and eat food and stuff. It's pretty cool. I'll beat this guy up, Michael McDaniels. Fingers crossed he doesn't bash me after saying this. That'd be ironic. And then I'll beat him, and then I'll go to welterweight, and then I'll finish off at lightweight.
Mate, good luck with that.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So hopefully it goes well. And hopefully he's like a team player. I just kind of want to go there, take him down, strangle him. Hopefully he's okay with that and just be like, look, bro, just come on, just fall down. Like,
I'm sure he will be. I'm sure he will be.
Please stop punching me in the face. It hurts. Come on. I have a family.
We are nearly out of time, Jason, but thank you so much once again for giving up your time today. Do you have any final words for our listeners and our viewers?
I would recommend, if you don't train jiu-jitsu, train jiu-jitsu. It's really fun. And I would always recommend too, go to a place that will like help you get better, where there's supportive people around. Because to be honest, you're really only as good as the teammates you'll have. Go somewhere where the coach is involved as well. Like I've been to places where the coach, he won't roll with you. He doesn't care. Like, one thing I have to say is, if you're going to have a coach and be a coach, like I go to literally everything. Whether it be boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, you could be an interpretive dancer and I'll corner you for that. If you're one of my members or any part of the fight team, I'll be there for you. And there's so many places that don't do that, and people don't realize, I believe you should expect that from a coach. Yep. Like, I can tell you all throughout when I was at the first place I ever trained at, I never had any support at all. Not from the members there, not from the coaches, nothing. Whereas when I first went and met Rich and everything there, it all changed. My perception changed. He was there, cornered me for everything. Whether it could be a local jiu-jitsu comp or it could be a title fight, it didn't matter. He was there. It could be interstate. It could be local. And I think a coach should be there for people because it takes the edge off. When someone's nervous, they want that person there, that person that will help bring them forward and drive them. And it can even be just a mental thing, a safety blanket. You're like, my coach is there. He's going to give me the right advice. So I recommend to people who are listening to this, especially I assume most of your listeners would train anyway. I would recommend, if you're at a place where you're not supported by the coaching staff, where you're not supported by the teammates, go somewhere where you are, because there's lots of places out there that should be. And I think that builds a proper culture and community that you want and that I feel should be a part, especially in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, I think they're awesome closing words, Jason. I agree. Like, I really do. I think there's a lot of places, and you have to find the gym that fits you and what you want to be doing. If you want to, just be doing it for a bit of funsies, I think that's awesome. And if you want to be serious about what you're doing, then find the gym that suits that path for you as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think there's a gym out there for everyone. And at the end of the day, go where you're most comfortable, but go where you're supported. Because that's a big thing. There's too many people these days that are just sort of hungry for money, and you see it all the time. People will grade you just to keep you paying membership, and then jiu-jitsu loses its authenticity in a way. And I think you should go somewhere where they respect the art, they respect your time, and people there will respect you. And yeah, that's sort of, I guess, my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. We'll have this episode out in a couple of weeks.
If
you could share it with your network, that would really help grow our audience.
I'll be posting this everywhere.
Fantastic. We love that.
You'll get a ton of listens. People like hearing my voice for some reason.
Yeah.
We love that. And we wish you all the best for your upcoming MMA bout and into the future. Maybe we'll see you again on Fusion or some of the other fight shows.
Hopefully.
That'd be good.
It's up to Fusion. Like, we'll do an interview after I win. I'll probably fight there in March. We'll do an interview or whatever. I'll win my belt back. I'll be like, hey, you want to hold it? It'll be cool.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
High-five in person.
Awesome.
Perfect,
all right.
yeah.
Thank you once again. And
perfect, just like you guys. You're awesome. Thank you for having me on your platform. This was really, really fun.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Really enjoyed it. And to all the listeners, thank you guys. We appreciate you. Just remember, tell your friends. If you are wandering down the street and there's somebody who kind of looks like they need a bit of a lift, suggest the Roll or Die podcast to them. Other than that, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again, Jason. Thank you, Kim. Awesome to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys. You're awesome. Appreciate you.
See you. Bye. Bye.